Welcome to the course European Ritual Cuisine, Digital Presentation and Preservation. Module 1 explores ritual recipes and their documenting via usage of new digital technologies. And this lesson will contain information on historical and cultural value criteria for recipe preservation and ritual recipes as a resource of traditional and artisanal techniques. All over the world today, different people carry out culinary practices and methods for preparing food that belong to and denote earlier and often particularly ancient forms of cooking. Anthropological and ethnological studies show that the cuisine of our ancestors involves special artifacts, technical expertise, and basic skills related to nutrition and environment. Traditional and artisanal techniques are intangible cultural heritage, important for preserving a process of preparing food developed down through the ages. Generally, ancient food preparation involves hand processing techniques. Through hunting, gathering, and agriculture, meats and plants were hand processed in several different ways. Some of them have undergone irreversible changes for the sake of human convenience. However, many are still used, especially to achieve a taste and consistency that is not possible with modern cooking appliances. In some cases, the term handmade is used to indicate the quality of the product, but often also for marketing purposes. In this slide, we indicate most popular artisanal techniques. One of them is cooking, and as the most ancient of it, fire roasting. Generally, the most common cooking methods were done over an open fire. The earliest forms of open-fire cooking would have consisted of placing food ingredients straight into a fire. Some indigenous societies still cook in this way. We know from archaeological evidence that humans have been cooking over fire since the Stone Age. Today, we still love to cook with fire. Of course, we have just become even more proficient in controlling fire, as our hunter-gathered ancestors would have become. The most common cooking methods were done over an open fire, such as boiling, frying, simmering, stewing, grilling, and roasting on a spit, where meat like a goat or lamb was tied to a stick and rotated by hand over the fire. This method is still used today, often with a motorized spit in both Greece and other parts of the world, particularly when cooking an Easter lamb. The earliest cooking pots were made of clay, and similar pots, glazed and fired, are still used today in many parts of the world. Another food preparation technique is preservation of food. Out of necessity, because refrigeration was non-existent, in addition to cooking, ancient civilization preserved foods by smoking, drying, salting, and storing in syrups and fat. Foods were often stored with a topping of oil to keep air out. As an example, Portuguese national dish codfish was salted to preserve the fish and make sure that fishermen could have the food they needed for many months at sea. Salt has strong antibacterial properties, which allows the fish to be stored for long periods of time, even at warm temperatures. Fermentation is a valuable food preservation method. It not only could preserve foods, but it also created more nutritious foods and was used to create more palatable foods from less than desirable ingredients. History says it was not invented but rather discovered, as the first beer was discovered when a few grains of barley were left in the rain, but later on these fermentation techniques were invented by ancient people also in other products, as known today, sauerkraut, winemaking, etc. There are also other food preparation techniques, as pickling, preserving foods in vinegar or other acid. Pickling may have originated when food was placed in wine or beer to preserve it, since both have a low pH. Jam and jelly. Preservation with use of honey or sugar was well known to the earliest cultures. Fruits kept in honey were commonplace. In ancient Greece, quince was mixed with honey, dried somewhat, and packed tightly into jars. The Romans improved on the method by cooking the quince and honey, producing a solid texture. Canning is a process in which foods are placed in jars or cans and heated to a temperature that destroys microorganisms and inactivates enzymes. This heating and later cooling forms a vacuum seal. Freezing was an obvious preservation method to the appropriate climates. Any geographic area that had freezing temperatures for even part of a year made use of the temperature to preserve foods. Less than freezing temperatures were used to prolong storage times. Cellars, caves, and cool streams were put to good use for that purpose. Here we have some most popular artisanal products, which are part of Europe's culinary heritage. As first, cheesemaking. Part of the artisanal cheesemaking process is the aging and ripening of the cheeses to develop flavor and textural characteristics. Artisan cheese can come from any type of milk, such as cow and sheep to goat and buffalo. Different regions of the world have mastered different types of artisan cheese. In Latvia, Jāņu siers is a fresh sour milk cheese, produced from milk and curds, using a traditional method of preparation unchanged for centuries. The cheese eaten during the summer solstice celebration, a Latvian festival called Jāņi. As per winemaking, for ancient cultures to produce wine, after the grapes are harvested, they were crushed by any manner of means. But the most popular method was to crush them in large vats with bare feet. Tuscany's wine from Italy has a long history traced back as far as the 5th century before Christus. Arguably the most important of all Italian wine grapes, Sangiovese, accounts for around 2/3 of all plantings and 85% of red wine volume in the region. Methods of curing fish or meat by drying, salting, smoking, and pickling, or by combination of these processes, have been employed since ancient times. Smoked pork and chicken is a national dish that has existed in Latvia for many years. There are also bread-making traditions. Bread appeared in all corners of the earth when people domesticated their plants. It was made from different ingredients and in different ways, but it became staple food for all cultures. The term artisan bread conveys the image of artisan bakers who are masters of their craft, shaping breads by hand and only using the basic bread ingredients: flour, water, yeast, salt, and most importantly, thyme. Rupjmaise is traditional dark bread made from rye and is considered to be the staple of the Latvian diet. The first written references to Latvian rye bread are found in a recipe book dating back from 1901. This was information about identification of ritual recipes, national and cultural significance, which is elaborated by International Project Eurica Working Group. Please see our next lessons in order to explore digital presentation and preservation of Europe ritual cuisine.